What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow, so today we are back going to be talking for the last time about Survivor season 48. We are talking about the finale today, where we have now crowned a new winner of Survivor in Kyle. So, my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and wow, I feel like Survivor 48, end of an era. Um, it definitely was a great season, interesting season, and I am sad to see it go.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun, fine finale episode. At least next time for 50. Hopefully, I think the live reunion won, so we won't have any of this nonsense that we have where they're still doing the like reunion episode right after the winner is crowned. Like we've mentioned for the past new era seasons that it's just so awkward and I'm ready to have a live reunion special again.
Yeah, I'm also ready to have a live reunion special. I feel like it's so unfair to the second and third place winners to have to pretend to be happy when they don't even have any time to process anything. The final three are all still exhausted and food deprived and just I always think it's so interesting how the first thing they do is give them champagne. Like these people have not eaten. Like let's not get them drunk. So, yeah.
Yeah, though I didn't rewatch the reunion to take notes on it. Watching it a second time, I was like, okay, episode's over. Time. I'm done. I guess the only
Yeah.
weird thing, exciting thing was the David Milk arm thing, but I'm like, that's nah, you don't really need that.
No, you really don't.
Yeah, I would rather see people's stories get changed because they're seeing the fan reaction and then they get up there and you can actually ask some drama questions.
Yes. I like to see the where are they now type things. I like to see oh, this is how my life has changed since Survivor. Like if we had had live reunion for 46, I feel like that would have been interesting considering how much beef people had with each other and stuff like that. So, hmm, I am hoping that we go back to a live reunion for 50, though I guess that does put 49 in kind of an awkward position. Like, is 49 going to do the um, immediate reunion? I guess so, but
I guess we did the voting for 50, so they could just do everything regular for 49 and not take any of the feedback and only do the feedback for 50.
yeah.
So, Final Tribal Council, it's revealed that Eva is a PhD student, Kyle is a lawyer. I thought this was fun. I always think it is cool to see people's reactions when they've lied about something the entire season. So, I liked when they revealed it just with Joe, and I liked it also when they revealed it to the entire jury. I just like seeing those reactions.
Yeah, I like to see people's reactions. It is kind of funny, the spectacle that people feel like they have to put on for Final Tribal now. Like there always has to be like a big reveal instead of just being like, yeah, this is the game I played and it was a solid game. And I felt kind of bad for Joe because, Kyle was like, I'm secretly a lawyer. And Eva's like, I'm a PhD student. And Joe's like, I'm just a fireman, dude. Still fireman.
And maybe that's part of the reason why Joe lost here because he didn't have a secret reveal where Eva had the secret advantage, Kyle had the Shaheen vote, as well as the secret relationship with Camilla. So it's like, okay, yeah, if you're on the jury and you want to see, okay, what's something special that you did that nobody really knows about, and then you can have a sort of slam dunk moment, it feels like.
Yeah, I feel like part of it is though owning your game instead of being like, haha, I'm just a dumb fireman. I feel like it could have been like, oh, these two can think circles around me because they're a PhD student and a lawyer, but I still held my own against them instead of being self-deprecating.
True. I feel like Joe is very humble and maybe needed to brag about himself more. And he's not like a dum dum. He went to UCLA. So it's like, okay, you've got some smarts in there as well. I also feel like Kyle could have gassed himself up more with the whole Camilla Kyle relationship. I feel like the slam dunkness of the reveal sort of was like not really a big thing. Maybe Camilla shared it at Ponderosa, so he didn't get those like big reactions, but like Camilla set him up to talk, and then Kyle is sharing the story, but it didn't seem like that big of a deal. I feel like Kyle could have like brought it up more or gassed himself up more.
Yeah. I I think in general it's weird because like Camilla was gassing Kyle up, and at what point do you need to kind of be seen as humble even if you're not humble? Like the fact that Kyle had someone else gassing him up maybe made it seem like he doesn't need to gas himself up as much. And obviously he still won anyway, so like maybe he was right that he didn't need to gas himself up much.
And maybe it was edited out because I feel like he could have totally talked more about like the secret relationship with Camilla, more about the Shaheen vote, more about their acting that they did, bringing up the Thomas vote even. I feel like there's so many questions where it's like, okay, they let Eva talk and then they just edit it out like Kyle and Joe's answers. I'm like, Kyle probably could have had a really good answer for this that they edited out.
Yeah. Again, I feel like Final Tribal is another one of those times where you really realize the fact that you don't get to see 100% of the time on the island.
Yeah, I feel like that's the main thing with the final tribal council here. I was just like, I feel like there could have been way more juicy answers to these questions than that what we got. And I feel like Joe barely talked at final tribal council, and maybe it is because he's the third placer here that they edited him out. But I'm like, I feel like all of these people could have good answers.
Yeah, I feel like it probably was because he was the third placer that they edited him out so much. And maybe also just for time's sake, because I feel like one of the things that we talk about a lot is the fact that the like final episode seems to encroach more and more on the reunion time every time. And so maybe it's something like that.
They can cut the reunion. I was like, okay, last 35 minutes is the reunion. Give us some more Joe answers. Give us some more Kyle answers. It just felt like confusing to me after the entire season. Okay, Joe is basically the number one person to beat. Everyone is talking about Joe and Eva, and they're scared of them as a partnership. And then something switches, and we hear Camilla even say this episode, like, okay, yeah, after the Shaheen vote, like, we're not really that scared of Joe and Eva anymore. So, would have loved to hear more or see more about how that switch happened and why it happened. And then even just seeing people's facial reactions when Kyle said he's bringing Joe to fire looked like, oh, maybe Kyle is making a mistake here. So to me, it's just like, okay, how did Joe lose? And it makes sense why Kyle can win because he has that secret relationship with Camilla. But for me, I would just want some more like background knowledge, more information to like see.
Yeah, it's interesting because in exit interviews, people have talked about how like Joe and Eva were threats to win, but so were a lot of other people. In the sense of like one of the reasons that people gunned so hard for Mary was the fact that Mary was a jury threat, and the reason Mitch was voted out at 5 was because Mitch was seen as a really big jury threat. And so I feel like the editing of the season really focused on gassing up Joe and Eva, maybe to make Kyle's victory seem like more triumphant, but kind of ignored the fact that there were other people who were legitimate threats who needed to be considered. And so I feel like if that had been something throughout the season where it wasn't just, oh, Joe and Eva, Joe and Eva, Joe and Eva, then this last episode would make more sense.
Yeah, and I feel like Eva did really well at the final tribal council speeches. I was like, oh, all of her answers are really good. She's speaking with so much passion. Like maybe she could have a chance here. I thought that was interesting too, considering it seemed like from the edit, and we've even talked about on this our recaps, like, oh, it seems like Eva is the third place goat here, and it's going to be a fight between Joe and Kyle. And then it turns out to be maybe a fight between Eva and Kyle for the win. So it's just interesting that it was seen from our perspective as the viewers. Okay, Eva is Joe's sidekick, but in reality, it's like, oh, Eva did really, really well, and she got more votes than Joe at Final Tribal.
Yeah, I do think this was really interesting because this is the first time in a long time that we haven't had a zero vote finalist at a final three. So Cedric, king that he is the one who voted for Joe and made it so there was no zero vote finalist. But I did think it was really interesting that like Kyle won, and I would say he did win decisively because it was 5 to 2 to 1, but like it wasn't a like clean sweep the way that I think some people might have expected it to be. So quite interesting.
Really, a really competitive final tribal council. It makes sense, I guess, because the last season they were watching was 46. And as we know, that's a very competitive final tribal council as well. And speaking of 46, Eva even sort of negatively shouts out Maria, saying that Maria is really old. And basically was saying that Chrissy was really old. I thought it was funny. Eva didn't mean it, but it seems like she's getting a lot of slack online for that comment.
Maria like tweeted at her like, "What do you mean old? How many immunities did you win?" And I was kind of like, "You should be glad that you're still relevant, Maria. Everyone hated you after Final Tribal."
Yeah, I'm like, Charlie's probably getting the call for 50. Maybe Maria will get the call for 50 now after the shout out from Eva.
Really, they just need to have a rival season so Charlie and Maria can be on as rivals.
Yeah. But I thought Eva did really, really well at Final Tribal. And like speaking of the edit that we're talking about, if she, as we saw, is the second place finisher, it's interesting that it was so Joe focused. Like, okay, Joe is a hero, he's the family man. Then, like we saw, he started to get some of the negative content, and we're like, oh, this is a little weird if he ends up being the winner of the season. But yeah, I feel like it just okay. Thought it was sort of odd. Eva comes in second, but we just saw a lot of Joe's storyline throughout the season.
Yeah, it felt like Eva's storyline was basically being autistic and having a relationship with Joe, and I feel like maybe it was because they were trying to like do like good autism representation question mark, but it definitely felt like they could have edited Joe and Eva's relationship in a way that still made them seem like threats to win, but gave them both a little bit more nuance.
Yeah, or even more of an equal partnership, or even from Eva's exit press, she was saying, like, yeah, I played up the dumb jock because when you look at me, I'm very like physical looking. And she was saying, okay, basically the audience was perceiving her the way that the jury and her cast members were perceiving her as like Joe's right hand sidekick person. And I thought that was very interesting. It's like, okay, she is saying that she was the brains behind the Joe and Eva duo, and Shaheen was also coming up with plans, but like she was the one bossing and telling Joe what to do.
Yeah. So I feel like there could also be like a discussion there about like gender dynamics and how a lot of times when there's a man and a woman, I feel like we talked about this a lot of times like in the 30s when we were doing survivor stuff where like people would vote out the man's right hand woman instead of voting
Hmm.
out the man himself. And it feels like maybe that dynamic is also showing up with Joe and Eva where people assume that like, oh, Joe is the one who is running the shots just because he's the man in the relationship. That might be a stretch, but it's something that I think could be considered.
I think that's really interesting. I saw online as well that people are thinking Joe was edited so much, like got more confessionals than Eva, got more screen time than Eva because they're inviting Joe back for season 50. Me personally, I think I'd rather see Eva go back out of this partnership because I feel like Eva playing without Joe here could be really interesting, especially if like what she's saying in the exit press is true in their relationship dynamics. I feel like Joe might go in and do kind of a similar thing and do the honor integrity stuff again, whereas I feel like Eva could be more interesting to see play again, but solo this time.
Yeah, I would love to see Eva play again solo. I do. I think the idea that someone is being edited in a certain way because they want them to come back is interesting to me because would Joe come back if he was invited back again? Or does he feel like, he did what he needed to do in order to like honor his sister and like feel good about like what happened?
I think in exit press, Joe, Eva, Camilla all said they would come back. I'm forgetting if Kyle said yes or no, but they might have all said yes.
I mean, if you're Kyle, don't break your 1-for-1 win record. Just let a sleeping dog lie, I say. But I also feel
Yeah.
like people will say like, "Oh, I'll come back," and then like maybe circumstances change, or they decide like, "Actually, I don't want to come back." Seeing after seeing how people react to them. So,
True. I think speaking of people coming back, David looked so mad, final tribal, very iconic throughout the his jury time, doing the standing ovation for Mary getting eliminated and doing a weird knock knock joke here. Thought it was just so awkward. And then he's like, "Oh, JK, I'm not actually super mad at you guys. Hee hee."
yeah, everyone was talking about how they were hoping that David would be like super spicy during Final Tribal, and then he wasn't. But honestly, I just feel like that's very iconic of David.
That's why I feel like David could get invited back as well. Jeff did make that comment in the reunion episode of like, "Oh, yo, bro, like, why are you so mad? It's just a game." And he was laughing about it. So maybe Jeff is like confused by David, but I think it's pretty fun television that it'd be interesting unless they do another Strong Persons Alliance.
Yeah, yeah. In general, David was such a fun character this season, so I hope he does come back eventually.
Yeah, and I think like what you just mentioned about David, I feel like it was interesting with the jury questions that it wasn't really that spicy. We didn't get any questions asked toward Eva and Joe about like the honor, integrity, strong person's alliance. I feel like it should have come up since it was such a major theme this season. Even asking like, how can you vote out Shaheen? How can you vote out David? If you are aligned with them and you have an honor integrity alliance, how is that not going back on your word? So it's interesting, like, was it just edited out? There didn't want Joe to answer that question to protect his image, or it just felt weird that it was such a big part of the season and then nothing like that came up at Final Tribal. No one's bitter
Yeah,
there.
yeah, that felt really weird to me too. Maybe like Joe just didn't have a good answer, and that's why. But yeah, like you said, that was something that we talked about a lot when we were talking about like what people would have to say to make it to the final tribal and like win basically. We were like they have to either own up to it or like have a good answer of why they did it.
Yeah, and we were talking about it saying, "Oh, it's going to be so spicy because we don't think that you can really own a question like that without sort of mental manipulation of yourself." So I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a really spicy final tribal council, especially if people are bitter or confused about why they got voted out." Even Kyle in his exit interview was saying, "Yeah, like I hurt Cedric. We were really close. Then I voted out Chrissy and we were aligned together. Then I voted out David." So he was nervous going into the end of being disliked as well. So it's like none of this came up, even when the players on the cast were thinking, yeah, you burned some people. No questions about it.
It's so weird too because I feel like so many people were talking about like, oh, this is going to be such a bitter jury. This is going to be such a bitter jury, and then it totally wasn't. Or like if they were bitter, it wasn't something that came up when they were talking about like their final tribal. Like, you know, like people weren't like angry.
And maybe that's a good thing for the cast that they're not bitter. But I feel like just from the editing of the season, you as a viewer, we're expecting or suspecting that okay, Shaheen might be a little pissed off. Star gave Eva an idol and she's voting for Eva. Like, how did this happen? No one's a little bit hurt or asking any questions at Final Tribal about being peeved off.
Again, maybe we maybe they like had a really good talk in Ponderosa so they didn't feel the need to. Maybe they're just not bitter. Like I'm just again, it feels kind of like there was a lot left on the cutting room floor that maybe could have been shared.
Yeah, I feel like the editing is just sort of confusing with the final tribal council, like we're talking about. And even maybe if you do a rewatch of the season, people will start to talk about the season being a little weirdly edited. I feel like it was so hyped up that either Joe or Eva is going to win, or one or the other needs to throw the other under the bus in order to win. Because it was like the first or second episode when we saw Joe say, I will give up my game for Eva. And we sort of see it in the fire making challenge, but like I was expecting someone to like throw themselves for the other person.
Yeah, It felt very much like they were building up to something, but they didn't even really build up effectively. Like, oh, Kyle is going to be the one to take them out. Like, there was the whole like, oh, no one knows Kyle and Camilla are working together. But again, it felt very heavy-handed.
Yeah, especially because for 3 weeks in a row, we were like, oh, these people are so dumb. They should have voted out Joe. They should have voted out Eva. They should have taken a shot at this very, very public duo. And then now we look like the silly geese because, oh, actually, Shaheen was right when he was saying you would want to go to the end with Joe and Eva. So what was Shaheen seeing that let him want to go to the end with Joe and Eva, besides that he would be a better debater than them because he's a debate professor? It's like, okay, we're missing a few pieces here as viewers because the cast members are seeing, yeah, Joe and Eva, two potential jury goats. Let's go to the end with this very public duo. Maybe they split votes and we can beat them, even though people every single week are saying, you guys are so dumb for not making a move and not voting one of them out.
Yeah, and it felt like the editing was also trying to say, like, oh, these people are being so dumb for not voting Joe and Eva out. So,
Yeah, every week we're like, no, this is the last time to make a move against them. Like, oh, final eight, it's the last time. But no, you could still do it at seven. No, you could still do it at six. Never happens.
yeah, yeah. But I guess Kyle knew better than we did because if he had voted out Joe and Eva, maybe he would have had to go to the end with like Camilla and Shaheen.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why Kyle wins. Kyle, winner of Survivor season 48. I think definitely towards the end there, we're like, okay, Kyle's got a chance now. He's making these secret moves. Even last week when we're predicting the finale, we're like, okay, Kyle, Joe probably have the best chance. Camilla and Eva are sort of the middle tier, having a good chance to win the game. So it does make sense why Kyle wins. I do just wish we had some more information on that other stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, and I also just I feel like there was a better season in this season than the one we got to see. I feel like not a lot of people got to be full-fledged characters, and even the people who we saw a lot of screen time of, like Joe, like Eva, like Kyle, like Camilla, I feel like very much hit like one note the whole time, and I'm kind of like, there has to be more than that.
Yeah, that's why I thought the exit interviews were so interesting. And okay, it's months and I guess it's a year after the fact now that they filmed this season. So maybe some of their memories are bad or they're changing their answers based on fan reaction and what they're seeing online and stuff like that. But I was like, the exit interviews were low key more interesting than the final tribal council because you actually got to hear more about what was going on inside their heads.
Exactly. And I feel like some people are like, oh, you can't trust exit interviews because in exit interviews, people have had like, it's been a couple of like months since the season actually happened. So maybe it's like, oh, they're editing things or they believe things that are untrue because they've had time to sit and they're remembering incorrectly. So I don't know.
Yeah, so it'll be exciting when they do the deep dives, the hour-long deep dives for US Survivor. Australian Survivor, you still get the nice, 4 to 6 hours of podcast content for deep diving into a season.
Yeah.
But going back to the start of the finale episode, they do the advantage for the next immunity challenge. It is a similar lock puzzle as to the idols that we saw this season, where they had to run around to the little animals across the island to unlock the puzzles using those symbols. But now there are dots on the symbols that correspond to letters of the alphabet to spell a word. Um, I thought Eva or Camilla would get it because they both unlocked the idols before and they're good at those letters.
Yeah. I thought Camilla was going to get it and maybe Eva.
Yeah, I thought Kyle's strategy of getting all the letters from other people so he didn't have to run around as much was it was good and sort of funny. He's like, oh yeah, XYZ, tell me what's going on. And then they just told him.
Yeah. If I was the other people, I would like hide my letters, but
Yeah, but Eva wins it. It gets the word, which is secure. I think it's time for everyone to start playing these, I guess, New York Times word games, I think.
yeah, Yeah, I feel like I play like Wordle connections and I still had a hard time with that. So maybe I need to be better. Need to be Eva.
Yeah, gotta play it every day to prepare for survivors. So that's another thing. You gotta learn swimming, ladder climbing, rope climbing, balance beaming,
You
and
got to get the grip strength too.
yeah, Charlie's grippers, and then also word games.
I feel like getting on Survivor is starting to be like applying for college. You need to have like 5 different extracurriculars. Ugh,
Yeah, you can't just work out your legs like Shaheen. You've got to work out your upper body because then you might get cursed and only have upper body challenges.
yeah, or you got to drink lots of milk.
Ah, true. I need to go drink my milk today.
Yes.
So we get to the final five immunity challenge. They have to go through obstacles, do the muddy net, toss a ball, and then it is the fire puzzle. Last week we said, oh, the challenges have been pretty similar, but now there's a puzzle at the end. So when there's a puzzle at the end of challenges, Camilla wins. If there's like a balance ball, maze, that kind of thing at the end of challenges, then Joe wins.
Yeah, basically. I feel like a lot of people have been criticizing Survivor challenges for being too samey, and I don't know. The puzzle is the great equalizer. Kind of seems like to be the great unequalizer now because it's still just one person who's winning all of the puzzle stuff.
Gotta add puzzles, but I think that's a given. Do
Yeah.
practice puzzles like this. The 3D puzzles are very hard. Only Camilla and Eva actually got off the ground on this puzzle. Everyone else was sort of just standing there, and that would be me because I think these 3D puzzles are so difficult.
Yep, and we've done like the small scale 3D puzzles, and even those are like rough. I can't imagine if the pieces were bigger and like harder to balance and harder to fit together.
Yeah, so for Eva's advantage, she doesn't have to do the basketball portion. She just places the basket or the ball into the basket. The muddy net, this one did not look fun. I feel like last time we saw it, Noelle or someone like that got stuck in the net. It looks so claustrophobic. I'm like, I do not want to go in that windy net.
Yeah, I also feel like Eva's like advantage wasn't actually that much of an advantage. Like, I don't know, maybe she should have like started with like 3 pieces of the puzzle already in place or something.
It's difficult because you don't want the advantage to be so OP, and we've definitely talked about that before when the final challenge advantage like this is so OP that it helps someone too much. And I feel like that was in the older seasons and not in the new era seasons, because only Erica, I think, won the challenge advantage and then ended up winning the challenge in the new era. But yeah, no one was having trouble with the basketball portion. Eva was having trouble with the other ball portion. So maybe that should be the advantage. And then you just get the ball in the like slide.
Yeah, that does seem like it would be a better advantage.
So even Camilla were like basically last place on this challenge, but then they make it up in the puzzle portion. We did see Eva getting frustrated with the ball throwing portion into the slide part, and I feel like this is sort of a theme we see in the finale where she's frustrated here and then she's later frustrated during the fire.
Yeah, but I think also the the perseverance is the thing I think that they really wanted to highlight with Eva as well. The fact that like she's getting frustrated, but also she's working through it. Which like Joe, like Jeff always says, like you gotta dig deep. You gotta like be willing to go that extra mile.
I agree. So Camilla catches up on the puzzle and then beasts it out to win. I feel like these puzzles are so hard, like I said. No, like, but Camilla brings Eva on the pasta reward. She says that Eva has been super hungry, but that was interesting because Eva has gone on every single reward but the family reward last week. So I do want to know, did Camilla have other motives, like not wanting to feed Kyle, Joe, Mitch, to like beat her in the final immunity challenge, or is it really just that Eva's her buddy and she's super hungry?
I mean, she also said like Eva knew that it was going to be her who was going with her on the challenge. So that kind of makes me think that maybe they also had like a preordained thing, pre-gamed. Like, oh, if I win the reward, I'll pick you. If you win the reward, you'll pick me. So I don't know. I feel like also though we always talk about how like the big muscly people, like muscle burns more calories than fat just like at rest, which is why they say like if you're trying to lose weight, you should do strength training in addition to cardio. So maybe it's that like Eva just has a lot of muscle mass that is burning calories even when she's laying down doing nothing.
True. So was there an ulterior motive here? Maybe we'll see sometime in the future. But basically, the whole first hour was like a yada yada. Everyone says, Mitch, we're voting for you. You're going home first. Just what we
Yeah,
said last week. We were like, there's
when
no way Mitch
Kyle
doesn't.
Yeah, when Kyle was first like, I'm writing your name down, dude, I was like, wow, that's bold. But also, like, there's no shot in the dark, there's no idol, there's no nothing. So,
It makes sense. I'm like, you just tell that person and you're not going to blindside them, give them false hope, and then make them pissed off at you. If it's easy, straightforward, the other people are not flipping on each other, it's good jury management. Like, you're gassing Mitch up to send him to the jury. You're saying, this is out of respect. You're such a good social game player. We are voting you out. There's nothing you can do about it. Sorry. But, like, we respect you so much that we're going to tell you we're voting you out.
yeah, at this point, it really is just jury management because you don't want, like, the second to last person on the jury hating your guts, especially because they might not have as much time to, chill out, decompress, be like, okay, I see why this happened.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. Camilla said she doesn't want to vote Kyle out here because she would be the next person to go and because she is playing the game for both of them. I guess it sort of makes sense, but then it also feels like she's throwing her game to Kyle here. Like if Kyle went home here, she loses her shield, but maybe Mitch could have won the final four Samotion challenge and then Camilla probably wouldn't be sent to fire.
Yeah, especially because the jury did say, like, oh, if Camilla was in the final three, Camilla wins. But mm, I
Yeah,
also feel like part of it is even if Mitch was voted out, Camilla did make a strategic, I would say, misstep with when she told Kyle, like, hey, we're not buddies anymore. So, and maybe Mitch also sees Camilla as a jury threat, so she would have gone into fire anyway.
Yeah, I feel like for Camilla, it's hard here at the final five and then going into the final four because you're in the final four with two duos, the secret duo and the public duo. But if Joe wins the motion, he's definitely sending Kyle and Camilla to fire. If Eva wins, she's definitely sending Kyle and Camilla to fire. If Kyle wins, then like we saw, he sent Camilla and Eva to fire. And then if Camilla won, then she would probably send Kyle and Joe to fire. But like this is a losing like scenario for Camilla because every single time, unless she doesn't win, she's getting sent to fire. Similar with Kyle, this is like the best case scenario for him to win because otherwise he would be getting sent to fire every single time. So it gives Joe and Eva so much power, and it's so lucky that Kyle did win it because then things could be way different, and Camilla could have won fire and beaten Kyle. Maybe should have a better fire performance as well. But it's like Kyle and Camilla going into four every time without one of them winning, they're going to be sent to fire. Compared to Joe and Eva, they're better situated where they're not always being sent to fire.
Yeah, it's very much a weird thing to get to the final fire and like have to do this mental math. And it also would be really different if the final four was a regular vote instead of the fire making challenge. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out in 50 with the way things were voted on.
Did it get voted on as no fire or yes fire? What
I'm
one?
pretty sure it got voted out no fire, but I cannot say that with 100% confidence.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting because I feel like we've talked about so much over the past few seasons where it's like, okay, Final Four Fire is stifling gameplay because people aren't really wanting to make a move, or they're like, oh, this is my fallback chance because I cannot be voted out anymore. I just have to either make a fire or win the immunity here. So yeah, I guess that'll be very interesting.
Yeah. So
But the final immunity challenge is Samotion. I think that one for season 50 as well. I thought this challenge was really stressful to watch, like the balls and the humming. And then it was so hard to see like which side the ball was going to, and then the close up of the hands. And then I thought, oh, they're gonna miss the ball or drop the ball. It got my heart rate up.
Yeah, for such a simple challenge, the motion is very like um blood pressure raising, heart rate spike inducing.
Yeah, I'm like, it is a good challenge. And I think, like we saw, it is fun because anyone can win it. Like the whole new Camilla, old Camilla thing, like this is sort of an equal challenge for everyone compared to a big obstacle course Final Four challenge. So I do like this one.
I do like this one. It definitely is more of a mental game than a physical one, I would say.
I agree. I think what would be better would be a long endurance challenge like Australian Survivor.
Yeah, but I feel like a US Survivor is just liking long endurance challenges less and less. Like it feels like even the endurance challenges that they have are not like actually endurance challenges anymore. Like they try to do things that make them shorter.
I agree. An hour max. No more 4+ hour challenges here.
Jeff doesn't want to stand out in the sun if he doesn't have to.
True. Then your pay rate's higher if you have to work less.
So true.
So Kyle tells Joe he's going to take him through to the final three because that's what he promised. Kyle then tells Eva and Camilla that they're going to fire. Kyle wants Eva to win to send Camilla home. Eva's having practicing fire and then having some trouble with it, where then we see Kyle and Joe hear Eva crying in the distance. And I thought this was a really heartwarming scene from Kyle and Joe, and then Joe and Eva. And I thought this was the most interesting part of the episode where it's like, oh, will Kyle throw himself into fire to take out Camilla? Or would Joe then try to throw himself into fire so that Eva doesn't have to go into fire as well? And I was like, oh, this could be some good drama.
Yeah, I also thought it was really interesting, just like humanity moment of like, oh, I hate to see someone else feeling bad and know I'm the reason for them feeling bad. I feel like even when there's not good survivor play, it's always heartwarming to see people being human.
Yeah, I thought this was the best scene out of the finale episode. Eva's like, no, Joe, you can't go into fire for me. You can help me do fire, but you're not going in for me. I have to do this myself. And I was like, yeah, go, Eva. This is the spirit. But I was like, ooh, if Kyle or Joe tried to put themselves in, I was like, that would be very spicy.
That would be very spicy. I don't think it would turn out well for them.
And I think it's smart for Kyle, like, okay, don't let Joe go to fire because he's going to get more momentum. That's another thing on his resume. Sending Eva into fire. It's like what we saw, I guess, as a viewer, that people weren't really seeing Eva as a threat potentially to win. So it's okay to send her to fire. Like Kyle's picks here makes sense.
Yeah, Kyle's pick here makes total sense. And I feel like it was the best pick for him to make, considering he won.
Yeah, and so Camilla has a lot of trouble losing or getting a flame, so she ends up losing the fire making challenge, and Eva wins.
Yeah. And again, Eva kind of struggled because of the winds, but she still persevered, still pushed through.
Yeah, that's why going into Final Tribal, I was like, oh, Eva has a lot of stuff. Like, this will be very interesting. She has all of these advantages, but it's like what we said before. Okay, people didn't feel threatened by her having an idol. They didn't feel threatened by her relationship with Joe. So, like, what was the reason for that?
Wish I knew.
So that's the finale episode. Any final thoughts on this season, Alyssa?
Not really. I feel like Kyle was a good winner. I still wish we could have seen a better edited version of the season, I feel like, but it was still a good season. I feel like solid season coming off of the wildness that was 46 and 47.
True. So we're starting this Survivor hiatus now. Next, I guess later this week on Wednesday, apparently we're getting the Survivor Season 50 cast announcement. So Alyssa and I are planning to do a Survivor Season 50 reaction to the cast video sometime in the upcoming week or so. So stay tuned for that. Over the summer, Australia versus the World is airing. So definitely let us know in the comments down below if you want us to recap that season as well. A lot of fan favorites on there. I'm so excited for that to start. I'm like, it's going to be so good.
Yes, I'm always excited for anything that makes the Survivor hiatus seem shorter.
Yeah, soon it'll be September before we know it.
Time really does keep moving forward.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this season, what you thought of the finale episode. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will